Welcome to the DIY Goalie Podcast, where hosts and goalie coaches Nathan Park and Connor Monday share their insights on how to become a better goalie. Hey goalies, welcome back to the DIY Goalie Podcast presented by True North Goaltending, as always with your hosts Nathan Park and Connor Monday. And today we actually have our first guest in a few weeks. We've got Dr. Riyad Khamis with us from the London Vision Development. He works with the London Knights as well as the Edmonton Oil Kings, kind of providing some sports vision training with them. So we brought him on today to kind of talk a lot about some of that sports vision stuff, because as we've mentioned before on the podcast, it's a very important part of being a goalie, being able to track and process visually and all of that stuff. So we figured that we'd get an expert on to talk about some of the stuff that you guys can do at home and kind of some of the important talking points on that. So we're very excited to have Dr. Khamis on with us. Thank you for joining us. And how are you today?
I'm great. Yeah, thank you for having me. Goaltending is a passion of mine, and definitely love to talk hockey. Especially, I'm excited to chat with you guys about it.
Yeah, for sure. So why don't we hop right into it today? And why don't you kind of give us a little bit of an introduction on yourself, kind of a background, like maybe how you started getting involved with hockey and kind of why you wanted to go that route and all of that stuff.
For sure. Yeah. So it's actually so I'm an optometrist by trade. So an eye doctor, and most people know that. But it's when I was in third year of undergrad, I was trying to decide where I wanted to go with career I wanted to do. And optometry I was always interested because of the business side of it, the healthcare side of it. But anyways, one of the main contributors to me deciding that route was actually I was a big NFL fan, and I'm a hockey. I grew up playing hockey, but I think NFL was my first love, watching it from a young age. And actually, Larry Fitzgerald, I came across an article where he did sports vision training, and I'd never heard of it. I was just applying to optometry school, and his uncle was a sports vision optometrist, so he credited a lot of his success to training his eyes and his sport and doing sports vision from a young age. So that kind of got me hooked, and I decided, I'm going to apply to optometry school because I didn't even know this was an area that I could potentially specialize in, which I was really excited about. And then I was a little disappointed because really no one taught sports vision. I went to school at the University of Waterloo optometry school, and they barely touched on the sports side or how the eyes and the brain process and the quickness and the reaction stuff. So so after I finished school, I decided I did a residency. So I went down to Oklahoma, Tahlequah, Oklahoma, which I still have no idea where it is on the map. It's somewhere down south in the States. We were there for a year, and I really got to learn more about the sports vision side of it and how the eye brain connection and all of that stuff. So then I came back to London, Ontario, where I grew up about 2 hours northwest of here, and set up a practice. And the side started pretty slow. We were doing a lot more brain injuries, kids with reading issues, ADHD, like teaching them how to read and rehabbing. And then slowly, kind of the hockey goalies started to roll in. So we got one or two hockey goalies coming in, and then we got a few more. And then the goalie coach of London Knights at the time, which was Darren McChesney, reached out. And yeah, we started chatting, and we set up a program with the London Knights to get their goalies to come through our office. We were 5 minutes away. And then initially it was interesting, and I don't know what you guys think about this, but my goal was to really try to come up with a way to help evaluate goaltenders. I don't know what you guys feel about that, but there just seemed like there's a way to evaluate goaltenders in terms of watching their technique, but it really depends on the team they're playing for or how good the defense is in front of them, and there's a lot of variables. Um, so for me it was like, what if we can take these goaltenders and measure objective results like reaction speed, how good their tracking actually is, how good their peripheral awareness is, and put it into a score and give them a score and be able to compare the goalies. So let's say I saw 5 of the Knights goalies or junior goalies, being able to rank them based on this system. And I don't think anything like that really exists. Even in I have a couple goalies that went to kind of the NHL Combine, and there was really nothing along those routes that actually properly did it. So yeah, we started doing that. Actually, that was where it started. Was I was able to kind of rank their goalies, being able to tell like which prospects I felt had good potential. Vision isn't obviously the be all end all, but it's another data point. Yeah, so started with that, and then eventually it was like, okay, well, we know all this stuff about these goalies, so why don't we help to actually train them, because they wanted to work with me to actually get better. And yeah, so led to that, which eventually led to the Oil Kings, because we spent my wife's family's in Edmonton, so I ended up spending a lot of time in Edmonton, and I got met Kurt Hill there, and yeah, that's how that started there as well.
So, since the game of hockey, especially goaltending, sorry, kids having like an episode here, so I might have to jet away for a second. So since the game of hockey and specifically with goaltending is highly visual, we talk so much about tracking and head trajectory with the puck. Um, do you think that the cognitive and the visual training are, for lack of a better term, basically the same thing, or that they kind of just go hand in hand, that you can just kind of conglomerate it together under one roof, or do you think that there is enough of a difference between the two that it would be better to treat them both as two separate entities? I'm gonna jump out. I'm gonna go see what's going on. Look forward
Yeah.
to the answer when I listen to this on the edit.
That's a great question, and I think that one of the things that the misconception about vision training is we have muscles that control our eyes, and there's extraocular muscles. And sometimes you hear that if we can make those muscles really strong, we'll get really fast. And that's not really that true. And usually that's said by people who don't quite understand how the visual system works. Your eye muscles are your fastest muscle in the body. No matter how much you train, how fast you are, how quick of a runner you are, your eye muscles are always going to be faster than any other muscle in your body. They're directly connected to your brain, so they're going to be very fast. So we already have something that's really fast. The thing we can train, and this is vision training, and that's why it's pretty much the same as cognitive training in certain aspects, is what we can train is training the brain on how to use those eyes effectively and efficiently. And that's really like our program. That's what we aim to do with goalies. I want goalies who finish the program with me to know how to use their eyes better than every other person on the ice. And like a quick analogy on that is, if you guys watch F1 racing or NASCAR racing, right? Your eyes are the Ferrari or the Red Bull car, whatever you like, right? They're super fast, but the driver, which is your brain, has to learn how to control that. And that's where you're going to finish, or how good of a kind of a team you're going to be. And that's no different than the eyes and the brain. Is vision training is training the brain on how to use the eyes effectively, efficiently, and to the next level, where even whether you're 14 years old, whether you're in the NHL, it's something we can definitely train.
Awesome. Um, Taking a quick step back, just out of curiosity, when you talk about evaluating the goalies based off of these skills, the teams you work with, do they take that into account for actually evaluating their goalies, like if they're going to take them on the team or not? Or is it just kind of another like data point that they use?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So with our evaluations, what we do is we provide it to the goalie coaches and the GM, and we let them use it as they want there. And what I find is, it's another data point probably for them to use. Typically, it does correlate. Like if we're finding a goalie has slow reaction speed, or a slow glove hand, or a low blocker is pretty slow, it usually tends to correlate with what the coaches or the team sees as well, or that's where they get beaten. Because as you said, the eyes play such a huge role in goaltending. So definitely does tend to correlate, and sometimes it may help them or it may not, but we definitely have the conversation. So
Yeah, for sure. So when you guys do training sessions, then do you basically run through the same stuff with goalies and with players, or does it kind of differ between the two?
Yeah, I customize it. So with me, I break it down to working on critical visual skills important for goaltending, which do tend to overlap with some of the players, but it's definitely different as well. And then through the season, I'll customize it as well, and that's why typically I'll try to watch every game of the team I work with. So, for instance, last year. With the London Knights, we were seeing maybe like a goaltender was having a little bit of problem with his glove hand, or from when the puck was behind the net and it was centered out front, he wasn't quick enough to react. So we would design specific drills for that week to work on that specific visual skill, whether it's that 2 glances you take to check where things are in space and really making sure we're taking into account a lot on those glances, just to make that a little more effective. So yeah, we'll definitely customize it to the goalie, and in the off season we'll have a 6 or 7 or 8 session plan where we're hit, and during the season we'll customize it more to performance if we can.
Yeah. So what we're saying is Dr. Khamis is responsible for Austin Elliott's record-breaking season this
Definitely
past
not,
season.
but
Yeah,
no, Austin and Alexi were really great kids, and I really enjoyed
yeah,
working with them. I get to still work with Alexi, which is awesome.
yeah. That's good. Do you kind of keep in contact with all the players you work with as they move along and all of that?
Yeah, it's one of the neat things about the goaltending things that I work with is a lot of the goalies come back, and I know that's one of the reasons I know I'm passionate about it. I know it's helping is a lot of the goalies in the off season will travel back to work with me, or we'll work with them in the off season. So yeah, definitely we keep in touch with a lot of the goalies. It was really Alexi this year was his draft year, which was really cool. We definitely kept in touch, and I had some conversations about the combine and just a little bit about like the draft day, and actually had a couple teams call me as well, some NHL teams, like asking about a little bit about the vision side of some of the goalies as well. So yeah, it's cool, and you make these relationships, and I'm sure you guys experience it too. Is once you have goalies, they tend to be pretty loyal, or they want to really come back to you to learn as well in the future.
Yeah, we see that lots, and that's kind of the coolest part about being involved in the hockey world and especially the goaltending world since it's so small. You kind of really
Yes,
develop those relationships, and yeah, it's cool to see where they get to over the years too.
for sure.
So, what do you think is kind of the most important visual skill for goalies to have?
Yeah, this is probably one of my favorite questions because there's a lot of misconceptions out there. And I think that most goalies, I ask this question to most goalies or goalie coaches or people who work with goalies. And I think that, and I'll give you a pause a second to think about your answers, but I won't put you on the spot. But majority of the answers I'll get is tracking. I think that's the number one thing everyone says. And really, like, tracking is definitely important, but at a certain, and there's 2 types of tracking. There's pursuits, which means like when you follow along something very slowly, and there's something called saccades, which is eye jumps, when you're jumping from one area to another. You're doing that a ton of time during the game. But most goalies, I find, like especially the goalies that we work with, because a lot of times when people are seeing me, they're definitely more serious about goaltending, so they're going to be your higher level goalies. Like, we do see younger goalies like 11, 12, 13, but typically most of them are good at tracking, right? They wouldn't be at the level they're playing if there were bad trackers, right? Now, there's exceptions, is sometimes we get like hitches in their tracking, or they make a couple of extra motions when they're jumping, but majority of times they're pretty good. So actually the most important and the critical skill for goaltending is peripheral awareness, and spatial awareness. And the reason why that forms the basis of the visual system. Your peripheral vision is your anchor to your visual system. So if you don't have good peripheral vision, you're going to be you're not going to be good at tracking. Even when you catch a ball, if you're going into this tunnel vision or a puck, and you're just focused on it, you're going to be slower, and your reaction time is going to be slower. And a good example is if you like were to think about like putting like a tunnel in front of your eyes, right? If you put 2 hands in front of your eyes and then you were trying to go from one spot to the other, you're going to be really slow. But if you already know with your peripheral vision where you're going, you're much quicker. And and I know you didn't ask this question, but one of the things that a lot of people are doing these days is training on apps, and you guys are probably aware of that. There's a bunch of different apps. The problem I have with apps, and this is we don't train peripheral vision, right? Like, think about the last time you had or you saw a kid, like a 12 10-year-old kid on an iPad, and you stood beside him, right? You probably didn't even notice you were there for a few minutes. So all of a sudden we're doing eye training, but without peripheral awareness, which is the most critical part of eye training. So in fact, a lot of the apps, like, as technology gets better, it's actually making some of these goalies' vision worse. And I see that with even some pro goalies I work with, and their eyes are not working very well. And it's because they've been training on just a screen for so long. So yeah, we just kind of have to look away from our screen, look away from our phone, and look around the world, or look around, because like our peripheral vision is such a critical visual skill.
Just before Connor hops in with this next question, what do you think of VR then? Like the Sense Arena and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. So they're all tools that you can use that have pros, but they shouldn't be your sole training device. They're all different training devices that you integrate into your training plan. And VR, I think, from what I've heard with goalies, is mixed things. Like, you don't get the feel or the touch or anything like that, so it doesn't quite simulate actually playing goalie. So your best way to become better at playing goalie is playing goalie, right? Like facing shots. But we try to simulate it, and it's good for like some goalies. I had a couple goalies who had hip surgery and they weren't allowed on the ice for a while, so at least it gets them that feeling that they're back on, they have nowhere to look. But I always tell them too, and I get that question a lot, is it's a training tool, so you can integrate it with your vision training, but it's not the sole thing you want to use there.
Fair enough.
So now that I'm back in the swing of things, I got to bank in a couple questions here. So kind of building on top of that, the visual edge has been kind of the top, or one of the newer
Sure.
Tools, for lack of a better term, when it comes to the goalie space in terms of training. Do you like have you kind of experimented with it at all, as like, or is it kind of the same answer with the the Sense Arena as a tool, limited dosage, or do you think that there's a real benefit
Yeah.
with visual edge? I mean, not that we're trying to knock at them or anything, but
Right. Yeah.
it's one of those things that we see get promoted a lot
Yeah, for
lately.
sure.
So just were your thoughts on it?
It's yeah, and I don't want to cause any controversy here or anything like that, but yeah, exactly what you said. Like, when we look at the science behind it, it's a tool. Is it the most effective tool? Like, I've seen not great. Like, had an example of goalies who, I had a goalie who used it and had to take a nap every time he used it because he was seeing double vision. And the problem is, it's an app, right? So there's no one telling you if you're doing it properly or you're not doing it properly. And a good example is, so there's a study in optometry, and this stuff, like the visual edge, all the VR stuff, like, probably hasn't properly been studied too much with like proper scientific studies. But like, there's a good scientific study on something called convergence insufficiency, and basically what that means is, when you're tracking a puck in, or when you're watching something come in, whether sometimes people went into double vision, and it happens when you have a concussion or reading issues. Anyway, so to correct that, they did three different things. One group of people did pencil push-ups, which means they took a pencil and brought it through their nose like thousands of times. That was the least effective because that's not that fun and doesn't really help that much. Second group of people did app training, like computer-based training, and they got improvement, but it wasn't like super significant. The people that got it properly were the ones that actually did in-office, like, vision training with real paper, real devices, things like that, and it kind of blew the rest out of the water. And that one is a gold standard study that we've used forever in optometry. And I do relay that back to the apps. Is there's a lot of screen. So kids these days, right? Like, when you think about kids from age 10 to 16, right? On average, we're spending about 6 to 8 hours on a screen or a device. So just in general, that's drying out. Kids never used to have dry eyes, right? And now all of a sudden, kids are coming in and seeing us and they all have dry eyes. My athletes, a lot of them are using artificial tears between periods because their eyes are dry, which never used to be the case before. And the reason being is we blink 3 times less when we look at a device. We get screen fatigue. So we're training our eyes on a screen Yeah, I use it as a tool, but I definitely say if that's the only thing you're doing, then definitely it may be beneficial than not doing nothing, but there's definitely more beneficial things out there.
So then, kind of jumping back a bit, then when we talked about kind of the most important things or visual skills for goalies to have, and we kind of touched on it already with just kind of the peripheral vision versus tunnel vision. Do you think for goalies in particular that would be kind of the top biggest struggle that goalies have when it comes to visual processing?
For sure. Yeah, I we have a way of testing awareness on goalies, and these are junior goalies typically, so pretty high level goalies, and I would say that one is the one they struggle with the most, and that's pretty consistent across the board. Is they haven't really been, because it's not something they've learned how to properly do a lot of times, is kind of look and peripheral awareness. Like people think about like peripheral focus and really trying to like catch with their peripheral vision. We never want to do that because our peripheral vision isn't good at catching. It can't tell. If you try to catch with your peripheral vision, that's when you see like those red line shots go in, because that your peripheral vision isn't meant to track. So you need to track with your eyes, but knowing where everything is in space, right? When you have a 2-on-1, knowing kind of where things are, or even just kind of knowing roughly where you are compared to your net. Those are all important skills that I'm seeing like a lot of elite goaltenders don't have as much, even up to like the NHL level. So that's kind of the area I would say for sure is one where we like to focus on.
Do you see issues lots with multi-object tracking
Yeah,
in goalies?
that goes along with it, and that's multi-object tracking is like being aware of your peripheral vision. Now there's more devices and more training things on that for sure, so that goes along with kind of being able to sort where things are with your peripheral vision and being peripherally aware. And we tend to, when we get into pressure situations, so if you think of like the third period overtime, that's when our brain wants to go into tunnel vision, and that's when the peripheral vision becomes even way more important, because the goalies that can be calm and just be have their nice quick soft eyes with their peripheral vision open tend to be the goalies that are the ones that they're the quote unquote clutch goalies at the end of the games.
Yeah, fair enough. So what are some of the things then to look out for in terms of like symptoms or performance or anything like that, to try and find if there is an issue with a goalie's visual processing?
Yeah. So the first part of any evaluation is making sure the eyes are seeing well. And that's kind of where we separate like the processing and the training and the neuro stuff from the vision part of it. Because just from a baseline standpoint, right? Like if you're not seeing well, then you're probably not stopping the puck. And a lot of goalies, like even some of the goalies that I see at a high level, like sometimes they're not seeing well. Like if you've heard of the term 2020 vision, that's what us most of the time we aim for, which 2020 is considered normal vision. But goalies, we want better than 2020. We want about 2015. So that means they could stand 5 feet further than the average person and see the same thing. So ideally, that's step one, is we want them to see 2015. And that can include maybe putting them in contact lenses, maybe updating their prescription or whatever, or maybe they already see it, which is great. Then we want to make sure that they're, and this is different than a regular eye exam because it is more of a goalie specific. An eye exam is a lot of these screening tools and just making sure your eyes are healthy from your regular optometrist, where a sports vision eval is a little more in depth on the critical skills needed. So the next thing is double vision. Is a lot of times what we talked about is the most common one I see, because if a goalie's had a concussion, and this happens sometimes with the junior goalies, is they've had a brain injury before and they've never quite healed from it. So what happens is their eyes go into double really fast. Like if something comes towards their nose, they're seeing double. And if any goalies listening, if you're ever like do a reading late at night, or if you're ever kind of reading and the words start to jumble up or they start to look like they're double, or you've seen double before, then you might have convergence insufficiency. that makes rebound control really difficult, right? If you're tracking a puck in and your eyes go into double, you're not going to be able to control that rebound no matter how much you practice it. So that would be another one. So that's something we can briefly test for. Depth perception's another one we can test for in the office. Make sure goalies are seeing 3D, that they're using both their eyes together. We're not using just one eye and losing depth and things like that. And then eye fatigue, we can test, make sure they're focusing good, they're not, eyes aren't fatiguing, and all of that stuff there. So that'll all be like tested, and based on that we can first iron those out, because before you jump into any cognitive, any vision training, if there's a deficiency in those, then your performance is going to be not going to be as good as it should be. And then we can now work on, okay, so now everything's back at baseline. And I'll tell you, like, probably 80% of the goalies I see have a deficiency in one of those things, no matter if they're 11 years old, 12 years old, they're the first pick of their junior team. Typically, there's something we need to just quickly iron out there. And then now we can jump into the actual training of, let's get you faster, let's get you reacting better, let's get you tracking better and processing information faster.
I'm dealing with eye fatigue right now.
Yeah.
Newborn keeping me up every few hours. So
Yeah,
eyes
sleep is
eyes are
very
feeling
important.
a little eyes are
The
feeling a
beer
little heavy
league
today.
games are not going too well. Hey, Connor.
Haven't started that yet, but yeah, no, that is definitely coming in soon. So then, what, or are there rather, any exercises that goalies can do at home to improve the visual processing? We've already kind of touched on visual edge and VR sense arena stuff there, so we'll just kind of take that out of the equation. What would be
Yeah.
just kind of some at home exercises that you can do?
Yeah, so I think just doing playing sports is important just from a visual development standpoint. One of the sports that I really enjoy, and actually I play with some of the goalies that come in to see me, is table tennis. Is ping pong is really good at developing your hand-eye coordination, tracking. You're doing all the visual skills really fast. So I would say, like, playing other sports like that is important to help develop that part of it. I can touch on this later, but we do have like a training course that we've released now where it's actual like paper charts, real piece of equipment, things that goalies can do at home as well. And we talk through it, but they're able to train their eyes at home. But in general, just trying to be like, try to get off the device for a little bit of time and really just like go outside, maybe play catch, like really work on the tracking and just throwing balls against a wall, juggling, all of that stuff there, to really develop those like motor skills, using like real objects and keeping your peripheral vision open while you're doing it.
Okay. What do you think of concentration grids?
Yeah, concentration grids. I think those are great. Do you guys have a lot of goalies using those, or?
Yeah,
Generally on our
so
dry land with our camps, and I think a few
And
yeah,
other.
okay, and just explain concentration grids to me, because I don't know if I'm super familiar with them.
they're like a jumbled like 10 by 10 grid where it's like the numbers 0 to 99 are
Yeah.
randomly placed out, and you have to start by crossing off 0 and then 1 and then
Okay.
2 all the way to 99.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's working on a lot of different skills, right? You're working on tracking, you're working on memory, processing, picking objects out of a busy environment. So yeah, that would be it. Like, and concentration and focus, right? Like, it's
Yeah,
hard these days to stay focused because there's just
yeah,
so many distractions, things like that. So that's really important for goaltenders who have to focus for the whole period type of thing there as well. Yeah. So no, and I would encourage like those. I don't know if you guys do them on screens or they're paper or where they are, but sometimes I know it's probably easier on screens, but even doing those on paper can sometimes help with the screen fatigue and kind of maybe trying to eliminate that a little bit as well.
yeah. We usually have them printed off. So
Yeah.
our cognitive training provider, they do them pretty much every time
Okay. Nice.
with their goalies. Um, so what does like kind of a development plan look like for visual training then? Like how frequent should you be, you know, doing these kind of at home exercises versus going in to see somebody, and like what's kind of the natural progression? I know it'll probably vary with each individual, but just kind of a general overview as to what you're looking for when you're developing these athletes with their visual processing.
Yeah, so really like the goal of any training, and this is sometimes gets lost, I think, with all the technology and all the devices, but it's simple, right? You want to become a better goaltender. So whatever you do or whatever training you're doing, you don't want to lose sight of that. Is whatever I'm doing has to be, your time is limited. As a goaltender, you have specific time to train. So everything you do has to be effective and it has to get you to the point where it's going to make you a better goalie. So the one thing I say is during the off season, we definitely hit it more. So I'll see a bunch of goalies come in during the off season, and depending on their level and how much they're trying to improve will vary. Like it might be weekly. A lot of goalies I did weekly this year just because they really wanted to get in weekly and really felt like they wanted to make sure that they're getting to the next level. Some goalies during the season, usually with these teams, they'll usually do monthly sessions just because they're so busy, like with practices, games, things like that as well. And then in terms of developing a plan is for me, how I do it, and this is pretty custom to, because there wasn't really, for me, I developed a lot of this stuff myself by just working with goalies and seeing what worked and what didn't work. So what I do is I usually I have a plan in the off season it takes about 8 or 9 sessions, and we can go more than that because we can heat each visual skill a little bit more if we need to. But we try to hit every single visual skill. So we start with peripheral awareness, then we have tracking in traffic, because that's a different skill, is being able to track when there's a bunch of stuff going on there for you. Then we work on rebound control and convergence, and then focusing, and then some of the processing stuff, like visual memory being a big one, is, as we talked about, like a lot of times goalies will do glances, but they won't really remember what they're seeing. And they're kind of doing it because their goalie coach told them to do it. And so trying to remember what they saw, or at higher levels, they watch tape, right? They watch tape on power plays. They watch kind of the opposing teams, like strategy a little bit. So being able to remember and recall that in a processing standpoint is important. Some of the stuff you guys talked about, like when there's a bunch of numbers and they're trying to track, or multi-object tracking or focusing, we'll do a session on that. And then what I'll also do, and this is different for me, is I'll come up with a pregame warm-up. So most goaltenders have, and this is a warm up of, and typically this is what I find, is like a ball juggling routine. So they'll do like whatever, they'll get to the arena early, they'll do their stretches, they may have like a 10-15 minute ball warm up, which is great. So we don't change the ball warm up because that warms up their motor coordination, but I'll add a 15-minute vision warm up to every single goalie that comes to see me, and it's a little kit they get, and they just carry it to the ice and they get to do their kind of warm-ups there. And it's nice now because we've worked with so many goalies, they'll recognize other goalies doing it. They'll be like, oh, that's the one that you got from there. And I actually just had a goalie text me yesterday, a junior goalie, and he said that like his eyes had never felt, he did it, we went over it, and he said he just never felt so dialed in, like watching like seeing through traffic, like everything. He was a goalie that there's really two types of goalies I find, and you guys might find this as well, right? There's goalies that take a while to get into a game. Those are your goalies where like maybe the first couple shots, things like that, you're a little more iffy about that, right? And or maybe you're like a little nervous about that because they take a little bit of time to get into a game, or goalies who may fatigue by the end of games. So based on whichever goalie I see, so he was a goalie that took a while to get into the games. Like I could tell, like right off the bat in a session, he would kind of be dropping things, he wouldn't be great, and then by halfway in he's just super dialed. And I was like, okay, we need to get there right away. So we gave him a longer vision warm up. Other goalies, I had one that fatigued really quickly, so we did a shorter warm up. So based on that, we come up with a little bit of a vision warm up for goalies as well.
Are we allowed to kind of get an insight as to how that looks, or is that proprietary?
It's nothing like super complicated. We're just like hitting every vision skill, and really like if they're pretty basic like things they are, and if the goalie has to understand why they're doing it. And that's the biggest thing, is like if you tell a goalie to do something and they don't know why they're doing it, or like you don't teach them. That's why I don't really do the vision warm up right away. It usually takes like 3 or 4 sessions, because they have to understand like what tracking is, what saccades are, what pursuits are, and realize why they're warming up that specific visual skill. then it becomes way more effective, because then they're like, okay, this is what I need to do for this warm up. So yeah, it's basically something we've come up with, and we try to hit like 6 or 7 different visual skills, and it varies for each goalie type of thing.
Okay.
So I'm going to tell you a story here, Riyad.
Yes.
So throughout majority of my playing career, I had glasses, refused to wear them under the mask just because it was uncomfortable and they would fog up.
Yeah.
After the playing career, coached with them, nothing really wrong there, and then decided that I was wanting to get in policing, and so had to go get LASIK to go deal with that. So went for LASIK, and they could tell that I was stressed out about it, and so they gave me these stress balls to kind of help me kind of
Right.
release
Yeah.
some of the stress, and they were eyeball stress balls.
Oh, interesting.
So you can imagine how messed up I was already, and then all of a sudden now I have these eyeball stress balls, and what made it even worse is that I am squeezing the ball of the eye that they're working on. So
That's
leads
funny.
me into my question. Do you have any recommend? Like, we know that there are some goalies out there that will have some kind of eye deficiency of some sort, which would require them to wear glasses at a younger age. Some of them will wear their glasses under the mask. Some of them will have like those sports glasses that they wear under the mask.
Yeah.
What would be your recommendations for goalies who do have to wear some kind of eyewear um, to comfortably have it under their mask, and if they do decide to wear like their regular glasses, like Nathan's wearing as an example, to make sure that like they don't fog up as they're playing?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question, and also a great story. Yeah, I can just picture you there, just being stressed out about that, right? Luckily, LASIK's a
Well,
pretty quick kind of thing,
it
right?
was it was the first major surgery that I've ever had in my
Yes,
life. So,
yes,
and of
yes,
course, like they're
yeah.
doing stuff like around my face. It was not fun.
Yeah.
Well, my wife was very similar. She was super stressed about laser surgery and put it off for the longest time. And I knew the surgeon. So we finally went in to do it. And the surgeon invited me in, and I was just like hanging out beside him. And I'm like casually having a conversation with him, and she's like freaking out. And then he does it. And it's like she lifts up, and literally he's like, okay, picture time. And we'll all take a picture like right after. And she was not happy with that. But yes, getting back to your question. So I would say, so yes, glasses fog up. Like it's tough. It's one of those things that glasses fog. Now there are this is a COVID thing actually, because that became an issue all across the world. Is we're wearing masks, and yeah, you probably noticed that when you had your glasses on, is they're fogging up. So they actually have come up with anti-fatigue or anti-fog wipes that work really, really well now. So we actually carry some in our office. You could probably find them at most optometry clinics or pharmacies. But you basically just it's just a wipe that you wipe the glasses with beforehand, and they actually tend to do pretty well with the anti-fog. The technology's gotten much better since COVID on that. So that's option one. Now, option two is the sports goggles, as you said, like kind of having something more tight fitted. And that's a lot of times, at least with glasses, you have the risk of them falling off if there's like a shot you take to the mask or something, or like probably less of a risk, but potentially shattering. So you just want to be careful with that. So the sports goggles at least protect against that part of it. And then contacts are probably the majority of the goaltenders that I see is wearing contact lenses. Depending on their prescription, sometimes we can get them in, but daily contacts are better. So if you think about like monthly contacts, think about like sweating in them every single practice and then putting them away and then putting them back in your eyes. It's almost like when you eat your dinner plate and you don't clean it, and then you eat a dinner from that plate again for a month straight, because a lot of the kids aren't great at cleaning there, and it's not super healthy, right? Puts you at a risk of bacterial infection. So daily contacts if possible, and that way you can just throw them out after as well.
I was the bi-weekly ones that I was bad for stretching them to like 3 weeks at a time. And,
Yeah, the bi-weekly ones really made no sense because no one actually wore them for bi-weekly. They would all stretch them for a month. So it was just kind of a thing that they had, but yeah, it didn't really much sense.
Yeah. And once I got used to wearing contacts, I was bad. I'd wear them like as soon as I got up till as soon as I went to bed.
Yeah.
Like they'd be eyes for like 14 hours, and don't do what I do, kids.
which is a
Well,
So
lot of things, by the way.
yeah,
yeah, no line fixtures. Well, I'll tell you a story of one of my first goalies that I had come in. Was actually she played at the what age she was, but she played boys hockey. She was really, really good at goaltending, but she was finding like her eyes would fatigue by the end of like the third period. And she'd never worn glasses. She'd been seeing the optometrist. Her parents were really good at every year, all that stuff. She actually had a prescription in her eyes that she could mask by focusing around it. But because she was focusing so much during the game, it was really tiring her eyes out. So this was actually one of my first goalies that came in. So we put her in contact lenses, like +1 contact lenses. And all of a sudden, like it just made a massive difference. Like she said, like her eyes felt so fresh. Everything looked really, really fast. And she wrote like a thing saying like this kind of changed my goaltending. And she ended up, she's just playing Division 1 hockey now in the States somewhere. So yeah, it's sometimes you can even do contacts for people who don't actually necessarily know they need them.
yeah. Well, I'll give you my little don't do as I do contact story before we get into this next question. Um, I had a game once that in warm up, I don't know what happened, but my contact came loose and it
Mm,
actually like bunched up, like kind of in the side or like,
yeah.
almost like behind my eyelid, and I couldn't get it. And it was getting close to the start of the first period. So, me being the stupid 18-year-old or whatever I was at the time, I just threw in a second contact.
Okay.
So, don't do that, goalies. If you have contact issues, figure it out. And if you need to not start that game because of it'll be fine in the long run.
Hmm.
That was not a fun game. I did not play well. My eye hurt for like 2 days after that.
That's yeah.
So yeah,
It's
that being said, what are some general things goalies or just people in general can do to improve or maintain their proper eye health aside from not putting two contacts into their eyes at once?
Yes, yes. And then just another story of a contact lenses. I remember one of my first years working with a junior team. One of the goalies was struggling and hadn't had his contact lens prescription updated. So he was only really, one
Mm,
eye was really blurry and he wasn't quite using that eye. And the goalie, we would watch him at the beginning of the season and we were letting in some goals that maybe we shouldn't let in. And he got new contacts. And I got a text from, I think it was a goalie coach of the GM that day being like, watching him play, they're like, he got his new contacts, didn't he? And I was like, yes, he just picked them up today. He's like, yeah, I could tell. He's just seeing it so much better. So it's such a minor thing that can make a huge
yeah,
difference.
yeah,
Um,
for sure.
so, in terms of eye health, yes. So, question about eye health. So, one of the biggest things is dry eyes. I think that's taking over because the thing about dry eyes, and you guys may have experienced, is most people at some point in their life have experienced some sort of dry eyes where the eyes are burning. But what happens is it's almost like your window, your cornea frosts over, so you start to see blurry, and you start to see for that moment things start to become hazy. And no matter how good your vision is, things are going to appear more blurry and everything like that for you. These days it's impossible, as we said, like 8 hours a day on a screen. We're all on screens. So trying to take breaks from the screen, there's something called the 20-20-20 rule. So every 20 minutes, try to take a 20-second break and look 20 feet in the distance. Look away from your screen, allows you to blink a bunch, allows you to kind of make sure you maintain good eye health. If your eyes feel dry, using artificial tears, but not using Visine. That's kind of a lot of people's go-to. Visine makes your eyes worse. That's like optometry's pet peeve there. So it just causes rebound redness. So use like a preservative-free natural artificial tear if you're going to use dry eye drops. Try to limit screen time. Like the world is becoming nearsighted. Most of kids these days are going to be, in fact, I think it's at 50% now, and it's their numbers rising. 50 to 60% of kids are going to be nearsighted because our whole life is up close now. So glasses, every other person's going to have glasses now, basically, is going to be the thing. So trying to limit that, like your best option is if you can balance being outside, especially when you're younger, with as much screen time, that's usually a good recipe. Like go to the park, look in the distance. It helps with like eye development there a little bit there. So those are kind of a couple tips just from an eye health standpoint. And those would be kind of the major ones. And if you do notice an eye problem, make sure you are getting your regular eye exams. I know in Ontario, I think it's similar in Alberta, but kids are covered every year for an eye exam up until they turn 20. So yeah, there's no cost to you. So at least get your eyes checked, make sure they're healthy there as well.
Yeah. Let's chat a little bit briefly here about your podcast that you have, which talks about finding joy in one's career. What advice do you have for goalies to try and avoid burnout while pursuing their career in hockey?
Yeah, so this is important, I think, and it correlates. So the podcast is more for healthcare workers, but it does correlate in one way because what we find is healthcare workers are at the point where, and you guys probably know a lot of people or have family or someone in the healthcare business, but the burnout rate is pretty high because they're seeing whatever their family doctors, their nurses, they're seeing 30 people. They're kind of just, it's the same sort of thing across the board there as well. And really, like for me, being able to intertwine like a passion with sports or goaltending with my career has been a game changer for me. Like that's been something that I'm super excited about. I get to work with a lot of goalies. I got to work with a lot of athletes. So burnout in general can happen in every profession. So I don't think it's just for healthcare workers, as you said, like goaltenders experience it as well. Now, the difference being is most goaltenders or people who work in the goalie industry have found a passion. And like most of the time, if you're a goaltender, you're pretty passionate about goaltending. Or if you're working in the goalie industry, you're coaching goaltenders, you're running camps, you're pretty passionate about optometry. So you found your passion, which is super important. Um, but there's still some things where you can get burnt out pretty quickly. And I think from our podcast, the three biggest things that I found that help prevent burnout or prevent that is one is finding your passion, which most goaltenders have already done that, which is great. Two is learning, right? Like there's this thing where after 7 years of doing whatever you've done, you hit a point where you're not quite learning as much because you've pretty much mastered what you've done, right? You've done it for so long, you can do it kind of without thinking about it, and it's pretty automatic. And that's a point where you start to enjoy it a little bit less. So I think learning is really important. And for goaltenders, that means learning new techniques, maybe what you learning about vision training or sports vision training or different aspects of cognitive training or mental performance, right? Like really learning on that. And then three, making a difference, right? Everyone wants to make a difference and everyone wants to be able to help people. And so I think that's important, is doing something where you feel like you're helping, and that can be for whatever, right? When healthcare, that can be helping people in with their vision or on that, or in goaltending, like helping goalies get better and really find like watching them develop. So really kind of knowing the aspect of helping people is important, I would say.
Yeah. And we'll put a link to the podcast in the show notes. If you guys kind of search up 20/happy podcast, if I have that correct.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll put that in the show notes. But yeah, if you guys are interested in checking that out, I think you guys are 4 or 5 episodes
Yes,
deep
we're
now.
we have a bunch recorded. We're slowly getting them out. So
Yeah.
it's we get to talk to a lot of interesting people, which we enjoy as well. So
Yeah. And that's kind of why we like doing ours too.
yeah.
Learn a lot from the people we have on. But just before we let you go here, when we talk about, like, because a lot of people don't think about life after hockey as much, especially those that get to a pretty high level. That kind of becomes, their sense of identity, their sense of worth. So just building off of what you guys are talking about and doing with your podcast, do you have any advice for goalies and just players in general, on kind of some things they can do to help find something that they enjoy after hockey, or kind of be able to find that new sense of worth or sense of purpose in something that's different than what they've been doing for the last 10, 15, 20 years, whatever the
Yeah.
case may be?
For sure. So that's a good question. I've had the privilege of working with a lot of goaltenders now that were pretty high level or played in the NHL and now are into coaching. So really, like, I guess the big thing is finding what the goaltenders are really driven. That's one thing I've learned about goalies is most of them are, because you wouldn't be a good goaltender if you weren't someone who is passionate about it, b put in a lot of hours and a lot of work doing something that most people probably wouldn't do, like going in front of a rubber puck. And so you have a lot of like motivation, and so taking that, which is really important in all aspects of life. I think being motivated, working hard, can be applied to anything there. So taking that and really putting it towards something that you're passionate about. I know that becomes coaching for a lot of goaltenders because they get to kind of work with kids and see them develop. But it may not be. It may be something else as well. But really taking what you've learned and the skills, because you've learned a lot of skills growing up as a goaltender. You've been more motivated and driven than most people. So using that to and finding your passion and really kind of tailoring it towards that. I've seen a lot of goaltenders become successful based on that. Even like the goalies that I see as junior goalies, and I always think like they don't make it, they would be great. Like they would, whatever they do, they were just gonna be great at it because they're so, like, compared to the average 15-year-old, they're so much more like driven and really kind of focused and everything like that.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. So,
Well,
no, go ahead, Nathan.
oh, I was just going to say what you're going to say probably and be like,
Okay.
we very much appreciate you taking the time to come on with us and to kind of share your insights and all that stuff. If people are interested in learning more or, have questions for you or anything like that, where can they find you and kind of what do you have going on your end of things?
Yeah, so well, it's an exciting time. So we got the training camp starting, as we said, for a lot of the teams. So we'll be heading out to a few training camps, starting to get the goalies coming through now. In terms of, we've actually released, this is a recent thing. So we have released a sports vision training program that anyone can access. I've had a lot of goalies reach out to me from different provinces, and so I just had a goalie from Vancouver reach out, and one from Florida. So what I did was my sports vision training that I do with all the junior goalies and the teams, I basically recorded each session and put it into a training plan. And we actually ship the goalies an actual vision training kit. So it has all the stuff you need to actually do a proper vision training program. It includes the paper charts, a little piece of equipment, all of that stuff that we would do in the office as well. And they're all evidence-based optometry techniques. And they log on to the course and it actually runs them through the program there as well. So they'll be doing one session on peripheral awareness like we talked about, and they just set it up, they do it for the week or the month, and then they hit the next session. And it's a good like 6 to 12 month program that they can do throughout the season. It also runs them through a vision warm-up like we talked about. So a vision warm-up they can take to the ice. So you can find that on, if you go, so you can find us on Instagram or on me on Instagram at High Performance Vision. And you can find the course on the Linktree account at there. And yeah, if you want to reach out via email, or if you have questions, we can put my email in the show notes there as well. And people can always reach out as well on that part.
Yep. We'll link up everything in the show notes of this pod. It should all be over at True North Goaltending now /pod074 or however Nathan does websites nowadays. So we'll.
Oh,
We'll
and we can do a little bit. I was gonna do a little promo code with you guys as well. So if you like enter the promo code North, you get some. I think you get like $50 off the course and things like that as well. So yeah, if anyone wants to utilize that, they can do that. I'll put it in the show notes, but I'll give you I think the promo code is North right now.
Okay.
Perfect.
Well, there you go, goalies. Make sure you jump on top of that. It's going to be a great opportunity for you guys, especially with the upcoming season around the corner as we start to enter into evaluations on our side of things. And we'll go at it from there. Gentlemen, anything else to add here before we sign off?
No, just a big thank you on our part.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it, and it's I would say like the goaltending in Edmonton is very promising. I get to kind of speak with a lot of goalies down there, and definitely the goaltending down there is at another level, I would say.
Well, definitely let us know when you're in town, and
For
we'll,
sure.
we'll meet up together here to get together with all that. Anyways, That is another edition in the books of the DIY Goalie Podcast presented by True North Goaltending. You can follow us on your favorite social media platforms, all at True North Goaltending, except on Instagram because we like to be different. That one is YEG Goalie Coach. If you're watching over on the YouTube side of things, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and hit the share button as well across all your favorite social media platforms. On the podcast side of things, if you are listening on your favorite podcast platform, whether it be Apple, iHeart, or Spotify, if you're a new listener or a new viewer, make sure you hit that subscribe and follow button. If you are a returning listener or viewer, thank you. We have been at this for 74 episodes, which is crazy. But Nathan and I are definitely very, very thankful for all the love and support that we have there. So make sure you do hit that share button and share it across your favorite social media platforms, because the more goaltenders that we can bring together, the better. You can follow myself on Instagram at MondayGC. Go check us out at TrueNorthGoaltending.com. If you do happen to be in the Edmonton area and want to book a session with us, we do have our facility bookings readily available for you guys. And like we said as well, we are entering into evaluations right now. So myself and Nathan and a few other of our instructors will be busy. On behalf of myself and Nathan Park and Riyad Khamis, this has been the DIY Goalie Podcast presented by True North Goaltending. Make some saves, goalies. We'll see you guys next time.